experience. The thing that is. And he put full.
You're listening to Radio Free North America. I'm your host, J.D. Welton. As with everything with this administration, every day, every minute, brings something new to make Americans cringe and hang their heads in shame. Today is really no different as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy visits the White House, hat in hand, to talk about terms around the extortion of Ukraine's rare earth metals in exchange for the money and equipment the U.S. has sent to assist Ukraine with its unjust war prosecuted by Vladimir Putin. We'll get to the value of the rare earth metal deal later in this broadcast. First, I want to start by the level of impropriety and outright badgering by the Cheeto-in-chief and his demented vice president, Little JD. It was an embarrassment to myself and the United States to watch as the two supposed statesmen attack our ally because he wasn't thankful enough to the Cheeto in his administration. Zelenskyy should have known that he needed to kiss the Cheeto's ass in order to get any cooperation. Imagine, if you will, a situation where President Zelenskyy is sitting in the Oval Office in front of the fireplace, Trump to his left, and Trump staffers, including J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, arrayed around him. Let's listen now to the clip.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems?
Note how little JD almost claims that he'd been to Ukraine, but backs off when he realizes that he could be proven false.
Bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about
From
it.
the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, you said thank you.
Today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
As we heard, little JD was complaining that Zelenskyy was stumping for Vice President Harris on the campaign trail. Is there anything lower that Zelenskyy could have done?
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
I know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me.
equipment,
You invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I
Again,
tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of times
Except
to American people.
Except that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running
I
low
know.
on soldiers. Listen,
Don't please,
you're running
Mr.
low
President.
on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go, and I wanted this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
As you can hear, there is no decorum, as if there were any expectation that there would be. Zelenskyy apparently is uncomfortable with only a ceasefire. As he puts it, there was a ceasefire in 2014, and yet Putin attacked. The Cheeto-in-chief, President Bone Spurs, has such in-depth knowledge of war and military action and provides this response.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do we do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you saying?
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
Well, what if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now?
But they have
Okay?
broken ceasefire.
What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me.
I could say I'm disappointed, but I'm not. I could say that I'm surprised by Cheeto and little JD's badgering, but I'm not. This administration is little more than a collection of fools and criminals, and they show their ineptitude and mobster-like characters every day. The only one missing in this round-robin attack on a brave and steadfast world leader was Musk, who was likely out firing essential government personnel and kicking dogs and babies. In September of 2023, Zelenskyy and his wife, Alina, came to the U.S., and while here, made a speech thanking the United States and her people.
Never before had the Russian dictatorship met such strong resistance, and never again will Russia manage to destroy any other nation. After Ukraine, if we fall, half of Europe would again be in danger of being in Moscow's sphere of influence. But American investment in Ukrainian security and global protection of freedom is working 100%, every cent. Now Putin's list of goals is different. Instead of dictating terms to America, Europe, and the whole free world, Putin is forced to humiliate himself by personally entertaining a delegation from Pyongyang and trying to find favor with Tehran. This is his clear weakness. Yes, it's true. And there is not a single soul here today who would not care what happens to freedom. And there is not a soul in Ukraine that does not feel gratitude to you, America. To you, the people who help us, not because you have to, but because your heart cannot let you do otherwise. That is humanity. This is what makes us Ukraine. That's what makes you America.
Considered the Winston Churchill of our time, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, along with the Ukrainian people, have stood up against the Russian military for over 3 years. Throughout that time, the Ukrainian president has worked tirelessly to secure support for his country and his military. And I do believe that were it not for the bravery and dedication of the Ukrainian people, that we would be fighting Russia in a NATO country right now. The Cheeto and little JD used the meeting today to look and feel tough. Like little men throughout history, they took the opportunity of badgering the representative of a country requiring outside assistance to build themselves up at Zelenskyy's expense. That disgusts me. Previous to today's meeting, Trump posted on his propaganda platform that Zelenskyy was a dictator afraid to hold elections. This is despite the fact that the Ukrainian constitution prohibits elections while the country is in a state of emergency. Here's a clip of furthering his insults in a later speech.
But think of it, a modestly successful comedian. President Zelenskyy talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won. He refuses to have elections. It's low in the real Ukrainian polls. I mean, how can you be high with every city is being demolished? It's hard to be high. Somebody said, oh, no, his polls are good. Give me a break. A dictator without elections. Zelenskyy better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast.
What is most disappointing to me at this time are those Republicans that support such a vile and evil creature as the Orange Jesus. Where once the Republican Party was one of a strong military and a believer in America as a force of good, think Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, and even Bush Jr. Now our country is commanded by a man that avoided serving, calls our military heroes suckers, and wishes that he had Hitler's generals rather than the upstanding military commanders that we have produced. I recently had a discussion on social media, if such a thing could be had, with someone who argued that there is no benefit to the United States in supporting Ukraine. He began his argument by claiming that Volodymyr Zelenskyy was illegally installed as Ukraine's president by Barack Obama, an easily disproven falsehood. Zelenskyy was legally elected in 2019, 2 years after Barack Obama left office in 2017. Incidentally, that was during Donald Trump's first term. When I pointed this out, the poster refused to acknowledge his mistake, instead demanding that I explain what is the benefit to America in supporting Ukraine. While I could have walked away, I found a certain satisfaction in watching a Putin apologist squirm, twisting facts while trying to push me into saying something he could ridicule. I didn't back down. I insisted that he first acknowledge the fact that Zelenskyy was legitimately elected and that Obama had no involvement. After he finally admitted the fallacy of his initial premise, I answered his question about the benefit of supporting Ukraine. Being American means something. It meant something when we stood against the Axis in World War II. It meant something when we fought in Korea and Vietnam to curb the spread of communism. It meant something when we forced Saddam out of Kuwait. It meant something when we prosecuted the war on terror. Yes, we made mistakes. We've fallen short of our ideals. But that doesn't mean we should stop striving to be better. Right now, we're helping a fledgling democracy fight back against a gangster dictator who dreams of resurrecting the Soviet Union's glory. We made a promise to Ukraine and our allies, and our words should mean something. Supporting Ukraine is about more than money and weapons. It is about standing up for democracy, respecting the right of self-determination, and showing the world that America still believes in something greater than itself. At the very least, we are engaged in a proxy war. We are arming the Ukrainians so that American troops don't have to fight directly. By holding the line in Ukraine, we prevent Putin from inevitably moving against the Baltic states, Poland, or deeper into Europe. I believe in honor. I believe in integrity. I believe in justice. I believe in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. I believe in a nation of laws where the people hold the powerful accountable. These are the ideals that should define America. We may not always live up to those ideals, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. So why does our illustrious leader seem to back Russia over our allies, even our own intelligence services? There's stories that have come about over the last many years that Trump was once recruited by the KGB in 1987. Recently, the claim was made by Alner Musayev, a 71-year-old ex-chief of Kazakhstan's National Security Committee, and the Cheeto was recruited by the KGB with a code name of Krasnov. During Musayev's tenure in the 6th Directorate of the KGB, focusing on the counterintelligence support within the economy of the Soviet Union, he was charged with recruiting capitalists. He said, quote, "In 1987, I worked in the 6th Department of the KGB of the USSR in Moscow. The most important area of work of the 6th Department was the acquisition of spies and sources of information from among businessmen of capitalist countries. It was in that year our department recruited the 40-year-old businessman from the USA, Donald Trump, nicknamed Krasnov. Though Musayev's account provided no concrete evidence to support it, there are others within what was once the KGB that also make similar claims. Yuri Shevets, a former KGB spy, claimed in 2021 that Trump was recruited during the same trip referenced by Musayev. He says that Trump first appeared on the Russian radar in 1977 when he married his first wife, Ivana Zelnikova, a Czech model, otherwise known as Ivana Trump. In his book Compromise, Counterintelligence and the Threat of Donald J. Trump, Peter Strzok, a decorated FBI counterintelligence agent, claimed that Trump was a Russian agent. And of course, there are the allegations of Christopher Steele, a former MI6 agent, who has publicly made claims about the Cheetos' connections to Russia. Are they true? I don't know. But the suspicion is there, and it would explain an awful lot about the Cheetos' apparent infatuation with Putin, himself a KGB colonel prior to the fall of the Soviet Union. As we mentioned before, President Zelenskyy was in Washington today to negotiate a deal to repay the United States with access to Ukraine's critical minerals. The Cheeto-in-chief claims the deal is worth $500 billion, and yet the value is actually unknown. Yes, Ukraine has deposits of rare earth minerals that would benefit the United States. Those deposits were last evaluated by the Soviet Union in the 1980s. Most are found in hard-to-mine areas, or in areas currently held by Russia in Luhansk, Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk, and Zaporizhia. What might actually be there and available for mining is in dispute. This is likely one of the Cheetos' great deals that turn out to have virtually no practical value, or so little value as to be essentially worthless. More than the true value of the minerals that the Cheeto-in-chief seeks, it is the idea that democracy and diplomacy must have a return on investment. Yes, we fought wars for oil, and yes, American interests are generally behind America's overseas adventures. But now our illustrious president has turned our relationship with Ukraine as strictly transactional. Nothing to be surprised about. It's typical for the failed businessman and con artist. There are those of his supporters that praise such an approach, that running a government as a business is what has been needed all along. I've worked in business for over 30 years. One thing I can assure you is that business is generally short-sighted, looking for instant returns and forecasting not in decades or even years, but only months. Government cannot operate that way. Government needs to look at long-term benefits and issues. Running America as a business is not only foolhardy, but dangerous to the health and welfare of our citizens. This has been a broadcast of Radio Free North America. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, share, and stay tuned for more discussions on how we protect our constitutional republic. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay free.